Good afternoon, everyone. So thanks for joining us. So as Quinn mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about what Databricks and dbt are doing together to make it easy to do analytics engineering on the Lakehouse. So the idea that every company is a data company is a bit of an old trope at this point. But over the last 6 months, it's no longer enough for companies to be a data company. Everyone now wants to be a data and AI company. And who can blame them, right? The amount of progress that we've seen in just the last year alone has been staggering. The velocity at which not only generative AI has advanced, but also, more incredibly, the velocity at which this technology has been democratized, especially in the open source world, is just mind-blowing. It's staggering. It feels like every week there's a new announcement coming from some open source community or startup that really lowers the barrier for regular organizations to be able to leverage these technologies. And of course, at Databricks, we're trying to accelerate this democratization as well. So many of you may know that we acquired Mosaic ML earlier this summer. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Mosaic, they basically make it easy for regular organizations to develop their own large language models. And it's just mind-blowing how quickly and easily smaller organizations are able to train and deploy their own model without spending millions and millions of dollars or spending years in research and development. And when you work at Databricks, it becomes very, very clear that with the help of open source and technologies like Mosaic, that generative AI and AI is not going to be reserved for the elites. It's not just going to be the Microsofts and Googles of the world that's going to have access to this technology. Every organization is going to have access. And so the barrier to becoming a data and AI company is not going to be the AI part. Everyone's going to be able to do it. Instead, the barrier to leveraging generative AI is the exact same problem that prevents you from making use of more conventional analytics. The barrier is really going to be just getting a handle on your data. Now, of course, that's a problem that this group, this audience knows really, really well. We know that data engineering is messy. It's historically fragmented using different technologies, and you need help from frameworks like dbt to manage it smoothly at scale, which is why we're all here and why dbt exists, right? I love the talk this morning from Tristan and Louise, talking about this theme of complexity and all the things that dbt is doing to help data team manage it. These are problems that the dbt team understands super well, and why we're all here and why we all love dbt. But one of the fundamental source of all of this complexity is something that dbt can't quite help us with. And that's the fact that most organizations have what we call a bifurcated data stack. Typically, the data platform that you use to support your BI use case is a fundamentally different one than the one that you use to support AI. And this split stack is the result of really fundamental architectural differences between how data warehouses built for BI to deliver fast interactive performance and lake-based system built to handle really large, massive data volumes and with semi-structured data and kind of unique compute needed for AI. They're just built fundamentally differently. And what this means for the data team and for analytics engineers is that data is split between these two worlds. And a whole bunch of work is made a lot more complicated by this fact. You have to replicate data back and forth, move them back and forth. And that increases the cost and complexity of running these systems, especially as you scale. And this problem is why, a few years ago, Databricks invented the Lakehouse. And the core of the idea here is that by adding transactional concepts to the storage layer, in our case, we call that Delta Lake, we could unify these two stacks and remove the limitations associated with lake-based architecture. Now, this idea was so resonant that everyone started calling themselves a Lakehouse. Everyone who's able to store data in an open format, open table format like Delta and Delta Lake or Iceberg started calling themselves a Lakehouse. So today, we wanted to just quickly recap kind of 3 aspects of a true Lakehouse architecture, and along the way, talk about some of the new upcoming features in the Databricks platform. So the very first attribute is the ability to bring AI and BI under a single roof. Now, as I touched on a moment ago, a big part of this is just being able to leverage the same compute and storage infrastructure and eliminate the need to replicate data. But what it also means is offering a unified user experience that addresses the needs of different personas inside your organization to make it easier for them to collaborate together. People like data scientists, as well as analytics engineers, as well as business analysts. Now, as hopefully some of you know, Databricks has an extremely powerful notebooks capability built right into our platform. This Databricks notebooks, along with a large range of different ML capabilities, ranging from auto ML, feature tables, model serving, or model registry, integration ML flow, et cetera, is going to just make every data scientist feel at home and be happy and productive on the Databricks platform. But on the other side, we also offer a first-rate SQL experience. Wow, those headings are really small. We offer a first-rate SQL experience that's really just going to make any SQL-savvy analyst feel really at home as well. And in fact, we recently completely redesigned the native dashboarding capabilities that's built into Databricks so that these dashboards are not only easy to build, they're really easy to share and distribute with everyone inside your organization, even those without Databricks accounts. We do this with a feature we called Share to Org. And basically, in a nutshell, what we allow is anyone in your organization that has a valid IDP login, they're going to be able to view a Lakeview dashboard. And Lakeview dashboards is just one of the many capabilities just built into the Databricks platform. It also features something we call Unity Catalog lineage integration. This means that consumers of Lakeview dashboards will never have to wonder where the data came from. With a click of a button, they can look at the lineage and know where the data behind their dashboard came from. We'll actually come back and talk a little bit more about Unity Catalog in a minute. Now, of course, being Databricks, we're also applying AI to enhance all of these experiences as well. We recently announced the public preview of Databricks Assistant. Now, this is an AI assistant powered by something we call Lakehouse IQ. What Lakehouse IQ does is it automatically extracts and exposes the relevant context from the Lakehouse to the LLM models that power Lakehouse Assistant. So that means that the assistance that it delivers is calibrated to the unique business semantics and jargon of your organization. Now, as great as all of our native experiences are, we know that a lot of data warehouse users, SQL analysts, want to just be able to use the tools that they know and love, of course, things like dbt. And in the last few quarters, we've made a ton of improvements to these connectors as well. The Tableau connector, for example, got a much improved dialect support that basically allows Tableau to issue much more performant queries. Power BI received a very similar thing for both ingest mode and direct query. And of course, we've added OAuth integration to both so that you have great SSO support as well. And our dbt adapter, we'll talk a lot more about it, is continuously expanding with much deeper integration into what we call Delta Live tables, as well as Unity Catalog. So unifying AI and BI under one roof is one thing you need to look for in a Lakehouse. The second thing you need to look for is the ability to deliver the scale and performance needed to support both those AI workflows as well as BI workflows. Now, as some of you may know, Databricks traces its origins back to Apache Spark, which is, at this point, a battle-tested system for processing petabyte-scale data, truly big volume data. However, in order to deliver the interactive performance needed to support BI use cases, we actually went back to the drawing board. And we built a brand new vectorized query engine a few years ago called Photon. And Photon is a foundational component of the Databricks Lakehouse platform. Last year, we actually published a paper documenting the design of Photon to SIGMOD, which is the premier conference for data systems research. And it won the Best Industry Paper Award. So it's literally award-winning technology that we have. And so why is it so special? And the reason is that it really allows us to deliver the best of both worlds. we're able to deliver lake-scale efficiency with warehouse-level concurrency and latency. So what we're seeing is a chart that's showing the cost of completing a data integration benchmark on TPC with Databricks SQL versus a leading multi-cloud cloud data warehouse. Now, you can see that on this chart, at all scales, Databricks SQL is vastly more cost-effective. And this is especially apparent when your data volume grows in scale, as it inevitably will. What is not being shown on this chart is the fact that across all of these runs, Databricks SQL is also significantly faster than this competitor. Ultimately, what this means for you is that if you move to Databricks SQL, your DBT projects will run faster and cheaper, right? No compromises. Now, as I mentioned, Photon it was built not just to allow us to do a great job with big batch data integration projects. That was something that we were always good at. It also allows us to deliver interactive performance for BI workloads as well, serving things on much smaller aggregated data. So here's a different chart showing BI consumption benchmarks. What you're seeing on the y-axis is the average latency, how long it takes a query to respond. And the y-axis is measured in milliseconds. And again, you're seeing those two competitors, Databricks and this other vendor here. And you can see across different scales, and on the x-axis, we have the increasing number of users, right? So on BI workloads, you have a lot of concurrent users. And you can see at all scales, we're effectively indistinguishable from each other. But as we kind of really get to large enterprise scale deployment, 100 concurrent users plus, you can see that that other system kind of hits its scalability limits and starts degrading. Whereas Databricks SQL, our horizontal scaling kind of shines through and allows us to deliver that consistent performance. So what this means is that with Photon and Databricks SQL, you don't have to move your data to some other systems to serve if you want to take advantage of our superior cost and efficiency when it comes to running those DBT projects. In fact, you can leave your data there, and Databricks SQL can deliver responsive, interactive queries for your BI users as well. Now, we're not just stopping our innovations at Photon. We're advancing Photon, and there's lots of things going in each and every quarter. But ultimately, we have much bigger ambitions for our engine when it comes to scale and performance. Today, optimizing the performance of your data system is really a matter of finding the right trade-offs across three dimensions: speed, cost, and complexity. And just like how we're improving our user experience with AI, we're also looking to improve our engine with AI. It turns out that if you process petabytes of data across the most diverse workloads on the planet, you accumulate a lot of usage data that allows you to build your engine quite differently and apply AI to remove some of the need for these manual trade-offs between cost, complexity, and performance. Let me give you a few examples of how we've done this. One example is something we call predictive I/O. Basically, predictive I/O is a capability within Databricks that applies machine learning to figure out and predict where your data is likely to be for both reads and updates. This capability alone is able to improve workloads performance by an order of magnitude, and this is without any user intervention. So on the screen, you can see the latency of a selective query with predictive I/O. This is the type of query that you normally would accelerate by building indices. Now, you can see that Databricks SQL, using predictive I/O, is basically able to match the performance of that leading cloud data warehouse with something that they call the search optimization service. So search optimization service you can just think of as a fancy index. And you can see that when you add this index, you're adding both costs and complexity in order to gain that speed. But with predictive I/O, you're able to get that speed without adding that complexity. And when you combine predictive I/O with deletion vectors, which is a way for us to speed up the actual storage of transactions, we're able to deliver that same type of improvement for our writes as well. So in a nutshell, predictive I/O allows us to deliver great performance without adding cost or complexity. And it's just one of many examples how we use AI to advance our engine. We're taking this AI approach to really all aspects of how Databricks runs, including a suite of features we call intelligent workload management. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with intelligent workload management is to allow you to send different mixed workloads into the same data warehouse, or the same compute warehouse. And without having to worry about how to segregate different workloads, or by over-provisioning and just running up the bills. What we're trying to do is apply AI so that we can learn from your workload and use that knowledge to determine when compute should be spun up so that we can deliver great performance without increasing costs. One way we do this is by a feature we call it intelligent auto-scaling. Now, we've been deploying this, we've deployed this for a while now, but we've been continuously improving the ML model that we use to estimate both the computational costs of queries, as well as to predict the velocity of incoming and in-flight queries. And we use these models, the results of these models, to automatically scale up and down your warehouse automatically. And this has allowed us to deliver some really big step function level improvements in how we upscale and downscale compute, giving you the best blend of performance and costs automatically. So we've covered a couple of things, but there's one last key aspect to a unified Lakehouse architecture, and that's a unified data governance layer. You really cannot unify your data stack if your solution for metadata management and governance is fragmented. And our solution for that is Unity Catalog. Unity Catalog offers one unified platform for managing all your data and your metadata across all the different workloads that you might run in the Lakehouse. Now, one of the things we're really excited to add recently to Unity Catalog is something we call Lakehouse Federation. Lakehouse Federation allows you to expose access to non-Lakehouse data systems to Databricks so that you can interact with them as if they're native tables inside the Lakehouse. You can then use Unity Catalog to govern access and provide access to these tables in the exact same way you do with the other parts of the Lakehouse without having to migrate these systems over. Now, that federation capability obviously extends when you use dbt with the Lakehouse as well. This means that with Unity Catalog and Lakehouse Federation, your dbt models can address tables from Snowflake, MySQL, SQL Server, and any of our governed or supported federation sources, and operate with them as if they are Lakehouse tables. It's really kind of the perfect way to bring data in from your legacy system without going through that costly migration. So we covered kind of the three core attributes of what you to look for on top in a Lakehouse, on top of the ability to just process data in an open table format. They also happen to be kind of the three core benefits of adopting a Lakehouse architecture. The ability to unify and address both AI and BI use cases on a single platform, allowing data scientists and data analysts and analytics engineers to collaborate together, getting scale and performance on both types of workload without having to worry about trade-offs, along with this idea of unified data governance. Now, one customer that has made the move to the Lakehouse in order to experience these benefits is Zurich Insurance. So just like many other organizations, Zurich was facing a really complicated legacy data landscape where they had lots of disparate siloed data pipelines and some on-premise data marts and data warehouses. And they really needed to modernize their entire landscape by moving to the cloud, as well as address new use cases that required new personas to come into the picture, people like data scientists, ML engineers, et cetera. And so their vision was to build out a new unified platform that was able to address the migration of their existing BI use cases, as well as new emergent ones. And so they selected Databricks along with dbt to be at the core of this platform, with Databricks acting as the platform and infrastructure for data processing, and dbt Cloud being responsible for the building and running of all the pipelines that were being processed in Databricks. So what building out this platform has meant for Zurich is that they have just greatly reduced the complexity of their system. They don't have to manage multiple kind of under-managed data systems, and making it possible for them to really kind of create that one view of customer that they really wanted to create. And they also have a single environment that allows their different personas to be able to collaborate together as well, And of course, they're getting just vastly superior performance and costs compared to what they were doing previously. Now, if you want to learn a lot more about Zurich's journey with Databricks and dbt, we have a great webinar. And you can just Google Zurich, Databricks, dbt, and I'm sure you'll find it. So this type of story, like Zurich's, is why we think Databricks and dbt is sort of a match made in heaven. Together, we offer not only a unified platform for your data, as well as a unified way of approaching analytics engineering as well. And it seems like we're not the only one who believes this. We're seeing just tremendous momentum with dbt Databricks. Last month alone, we saw almost 700,000 downloads of dbt Databricks via PyPy. And the number of SQL statements that's being issued from dbt into Databricks is rapidly approaching 6 million every single day. And in fact, a little secret, dbt is our fastest growing partner at Databricks with 5x compute growth each and every year, or sorry, in the last year alone. And this momentum and this love is coming from companies of all shapes and sizes, not just little startups and not just large enterprises, all different shapes and sizes. What they have in common is that they love working with the open Lakehouse, the ability to run both SQL and Python models all together in one place, and they love knowing the fact that they're getting the best possible performance and price. Now, we've been working really closely with dbt to make our integration much better. There are a bunch of highlights, but a few things I want to call out. We've brought our Delta Live table streaming tables to dbt. And basically what this allows you to do is it makes it really easy to do streaming incremental ingestion directly into object storage, like S3 or ADFS, without having to bring that complexity into using dbt or some other tool. Along with that, we're also bringing materialized views, which effectively makes it simple for analytics engineers to build incremental and more performant pipelines. We've also been working hard to bring our Python dbt models to parity with SQL models in terms of the usability and how you manage the content lifecycle. And as always, we've been working hard to make sure the absolute latest capabilities from Delta, from Unity Catalog, from Databricks SQL, and everything else in the Lakehouse are accessible directly to dbt as well. An example of this is liquid clustering, which is a new storage level feature in Delta that makes it much simpler to get great performance without having to relay out your data tables. And we're not stopping there. If you look forward the next few quarters, we have a whole bunch of new features that's going to make the integration much better. We have compute per model, which simplifies working with projects that have a blend of Python and SQL together. And it gives the dbt user much finer grained control about what compute to use. We have improvements to our partner connects that makes it really easy for non-admins on Databricks to be able to get started with dbt within minutes. And of course, we have much improved connection handling that allows for efficient reuse of connections to minimize the latency when we're working together, which obviously translates to costs as well. And finally, we're continuously bringing the latest Databricks platform capabilities like Delta and Delta 3.0 with Uniform to dbt. And finally, we're super excited to be a launch partner for dbt's new semantic layer. So there's a lot happening in the combination of dbt and Databricks. So I've done a lot of talking. It's been one-sided so far. So one of the things I'd love to do is to bring on a customer who can share a little bit what it's like to use dbt and Databricks in the real world. So I'd like to welcome Sam Garfield from Retool to the stage. Please give him a warm welcome. Sam.
Good evening.
Good evening. I guess it's evening.
Yeah.
Getting there.
Borderline, you know.
Your mind's there. I appreciate that. That's good. Well, thanks for joining us, Sam.
Yeah, it's an honor. I'm a big fan of both dbt and Databricks, so I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, maybe just for the audience, obviously we've talked a lot, but maybe just a quick intro. What is Retool? What do you do with Retool? What do you do at Retool?
Yeah, so Retool, I'm a little biased, but I think Retool is a pretty incredible tool and platform. And actually, I think it's something that more data professionals could benefit from knowing about. Retool offers at its core a secure platform for reading from, connecting to, writing to almost any arbitrary database or API.
You guys support Databricks too.
Oh yeah, of course, including the Lakehouse. We actually have a partnership, constantly improving and iterating and making sure that connection works as well as it can. We've been using it quite a lot at Retool. But when a lot of data professionals see Retool, they look at it and they think, oh, that's a BI tool. But what Retool actually is a platform for building any kind of software your business could need using that data that it's securely connected to. So the most common use case is web apps, but we also offer the ability to create App Store-ready mobile apps. We offer the ability to create back-end logic and workflows, and even AI and ML workflows from within Retool. So I love working with Retool as a data person because with a little bit of JavaScript, it actually turns me into a full-fledged app developer, which is pretty powerful.
That's cool. And so what do you do for Retool specifically?
Yeah, so I was the founding member of the analytics engineering team. I've been at Retool for 11 months. What that means is that I basically do everything. Had a lot of ground to cover, building out this team, but helping Retool as it scales into a more mature company, create a scalable data system that it can use to keep gaining insights from and taking advantage of the data that it has available to it well into the future. Actually, I would be remiss if I didn't mention we're hiring for an analytics engineer. Okay. Please apply on the website. If you see me around at Coalesce, feel free to ask questions about the position. Really incredible team, really incredible product. You can even find me on the DBT Labs Slack community. So feel free to message me with questions.
Awesome. All right, so Retool obviously is in the business of helping customers activate and use their data, but why is data use important internally within Retool?
Yeah, we eat our own dog food, and data is kind of baked into the fiber of our entire being. And one of the ways that manifests is that our strategy is to hire smart technical people who are data savvy and then empower them with data to build their own tools and applications that allow them to kind of achieve data activation, get both insights from the data that we have access to, but also to build tools that actually automate processes and make them more efficient and effective. So, we help people self-serve from across the entire company, everything from HR to marketing to product, and we cover a lot of ground, making sure people are able to get the data they need to meet those self-serve needs. On the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, we have some very highly governed, well-defined core company KPIs. Right. For example, we care a lot about the number of people who are actively building apps on Retool over time as a measure of the health and success of our company. So between those two use cases, the data team has had a lot of ground to cover. And honestly, it would not be possible without the combination of DBT and Databricks.
Awesome. So, you talked about this idea of, allowing self-service as well as governance. But what does that really look like on a day-to-day basis? Can you give me an example of how, within Retool, how you put data to work?
Yeah. So, one example would be our customer success teams. Retool is a very powerful product. That means it's a pretty complicated product, and one that the customer success team needs to have a lot of information about their accounts in order to be able to make sure we're driving adoption, we're helping customers figure out how to get the most value they can out of the product. So they have one mega dashboard that is pretty cool. It ties together data directly from Salesforce, from our DBT models to measure how customers are using Retool. Ties together machine learning models about customer health, account health, and a bunch of other data sources. And one customer success person can see in one place everything they need to know to figure out what the next action they need to take is in order to continue driving that customer success.
Very, very cool. So I mean, okay, so you have all these needs, but from an infrastructure perspective, you guys run dbt, Databricks. Now I understand that you were using dbt even before you used Databricks. Are you able to share why Retool was using dbt before?
Yeah. So dbt was actually adopted years before I arrived at Retool. But I maybe wouldn't have taken the job if we didn't have dbt. It's such an industry standard tool that asking an analytics engineer to come work at your startup in 2023 without dbt is like asking a surgeon to work at your hospital without an operating room. You can hire them, but there's a lot of setup you need to do before they can actually get to the real work. But dbt was adopted when the company was much smaller by people who were wearing a lot of hats, like our head of growth, for example, and people who were smart technical people, but who were not deep data experts per se. And what it allowed them to do was really quickly get value out of the data. The large quantities of data they were generating about how people were using Retool, without needing to wait to hire a data team, all that stuff. By the time I got there, it was also a blessing to have dbt in place. There's already one code base with everything I needed to think about, all the existing kind of domain knowledge baked in. There's already existing documentation about what the data meant, how to use it, and there's even existing data quality testing and alerting that notified me of issues that I wouldn't have even thought to check for because someone was smart enough 3 years ago to put that check in place.
So basically, dbt allowed you to get started when you guys were much smaller scale, and it provided that scaffolding for you to scale as well. I mean,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
a story that we hear with dbt all the time. But you later originally you were using dbt, but with something else, and then later you chose to adopt Databricks and the Lakehouse. So why did you move to Databricks? What were the top considerations?
Yeah, so we were unhappy with the data warehouse solution we had. It worked really well when it was a small company, but it wasn't scaling well. And we initiated a evaluation process to compare some options. And actually, as I told you earlier, Databricks was not on the original list of options that we were considering.
Right.
Which I think is interesting. One reason is that oftentimes Databricks isn't thought of as the first thing that comes to mind when we think of, I need to replace my data warehouse.
Right.
Especially
a few years ago.
Yeah, especially a few years ago, which is too bad because the Lakehouse is actually such a good replacement in effect. There's actually a data scientist who was a big fan of Databricks from a previous job who kind of forced the issue, and we were very happy that she did. So we ended up choosing Databricks for several reasons. The first one is, literally in the name of this talk, no compromises. Having the ability to scale like a data lake, but with the controls and economics of a data warehouse is great, and especially great if you're a fast-moving, fast-growing company like Retool, where we don't even know if a data lake or a data warehouse is going to be the right application, or right for a given application a year from now, or even 6 months from now. Right. So I don't have to worry about that now that we've adopted the Lakehouse. A second reason is that Databricks, I feel like a kid in a candy shop with all of the free stuff you get by kind of buying into the the Databricks platform. You get the ability to essentially build any conceivable data application just in one platform, which after over a decade working in data is something that very much appeals to me. You can.
What do you mean by free stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of features. You can do basically anything you need to in Databricks. If you need to do data engineering, you get Delta live tables and streaming, you get notebooks, you get workflows. Right. If you need to do data analysis or data science, you have the BI tools and notebooks as well. For me, I have SQL warehouses, which allow me to take this DBT paradigm of doing data analytics or analytics engineering and applying it on top of a Lakehouse in a way that is very convenient and matches my previous experience. So yeah, it's an easy decision to make.
Were there any other just so unified experience, all these freebies? Any other reason you moved to the Lakehouse?
Yeah, well, if it's 2023 and your company isn't concerned about budget and cost, I am jealous of you. But even if you are concerned or are not concerned, things costing less is always good. And so Databricks has been pretty impressive in terms of the cost and performance. We decreased the actual spend on our daily DBT production jobs by 50%. And there's probably some more that we can wring out of that. And we decreased the runtime by 25% at the same time. So truly like a no compromise situation.
That's awesome. Yeah, team would love to hear that. Yeah. That's awesome. So you've been using DBT and Databricks for a little while now. What have you been seeing? What are some of the ways in which this combination is powerful for
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have a partnership, and it's going quite well as far as I can tell. The DBT Databricks adapter is constantly being developed and improved, and that actually makes DBT Cloud integrate with the core features of Databricks in a way that's really straightforward, and allows you to get the most out of Databricks in the existing kind of DBT model that you're familiar with. For one, it automatically integrates Unity Catalog so that you don't have to do any extra configuration. You get all of the security and permissions and granular stuff like that within your existing DBT model. It automatically does photon optimization, which we've seen saves significant money and time. And it also really takes advantage of what I think is one of Databricks' killer features, especially from an analytics engineering perspective, which is SQL warehouses. I actually don't think enough people know about SQL warehouses. It's pretty great. You basically spin up what looks to the average user just like a warehouse that you can query like a traditional warehouse using a SQL editor. And it sits on top of your Lakehouse. And for a lot of existing practitioners, you just give them a SQL warehouse, and they move on their merry way, and they don't have to really make any changes. But DBT and Databricks, the ability to configure and control the kinds of warehouses that you use for a given DBT application have allowed us to do a really good job of optimizing our spend, making sure that you only use the right compute for the right application. And it's going to get even better with some of the stuff you were talking about earlier with per model compute.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when we were chatting backstage, you were excited about being able to blend Python and SQL. And
yes.
About that, so.
Yes, that too.
And you also mentioned you're excited about the AI assistant.
Yeah.
Talk too much about that.
Yeah. It's a very delightful experience. I got a message on Slack, and it was like, hey, look at what's going on in this Slack channel. And it turned out that I had been saved a whole lot of time by the Databricks AI assistant, and I didn't even know it because it automatically ingested the DBT documentation and was using it to answer stakeholders' questions about the data without me ever having to be involved. That was a very delightful moment for me.
Awesome. So I also understand you've actually been working with the Spark ecosystem for a little while now. What are some of the ways you've seen this technology change over the years with Databricks?
Yeah, I've been using Spark for half a decade, and going from like Hadoop to Spark was like night and day. But it felt like you needed a PhD to actually get the most out of Spark. It's so complicated to set up, to tune, to know how to store your data so that you could query it optimally. One of the biggest things that I've been impressed by is how Databricks has taken Spark and made it accessible. There's so many things that I don't have to think about anymore, like how do I partition this data correctly because of things like liquid clustering. and just-in-time clustering, a lot of the automatic optimizations that Databricks is able to do now, where honestly, it's kind of taken some of the fun out of figuring that puzzle of how to store it, but it makes me more productive as an analytics engineer overall.
And making it simple is like the highest praise.
Yes.
You give the engineering team at Databricks.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, I have to say, like, hats off to you guys on Unity Catalog. I've gone through a couple GDPR compliance projects.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And it's for very good reason. Managing private data, who has access to that data and how it's used is very important. But it is a pain. And like half a decade ago, I would have not even considered trying to do that using Spark because the permissioning was just so opaque, would have been so difficult to figure out. And honestly, it kind of feels like a bit of a magic trick how easy it is to do in this Lakehouse kind of format with Unity Catalog.
Yeah, we got to get you in front of our marketing people.
Yeah.
Magic trick. That's a good one. Awesome. So you've been using DBT and Databricks together. What's next? What's next for Retool? What are some of the things that you've seen from us that you're excited about?
Yeah.
Or from DBT?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a big one for me is ML and AI. We have been migrated to Databricks for a while now, and we are just finishing the process of migrating some of our existing ML applications into Databricks, and it's been awesome. Before you have some notebook on some completely other platform that you have to manually go run when you need to retrain the model, and then who knows if it ran correctly. Now, have it integrated directly into the Databricks platform, and I'm honestly excited to kind of get back to hopefully doing some more ML work, given how much more accessible and easy it is. It's been a couple years for me, but especially with the auto ML stuff, I imagine that will make it pretty easy to deliver value from the data in a way that our stakeholders and the business kind of didn't even imagine.
Everyone wants access to that.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Well, thanks, Sam, for coming up here and telling us all about what you're doing with DBT and Databricks.
Yeah.
If you guys have questions for Sam, he's going to be hanging around here later as well. But thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Give him a hand.
Yeah.
All right, so that was actually it in terms of what this talk is all about. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about what it means to do analytics engineering on the Lakehouse and what a Lakehouse actually is. If you actually want to learn more and get hands-on with DBT and Databricks, we have a hands-on workshop tomorrow. That's at level 4, just over here. And you can also just come by to our booth on the activation floor, where we have both demos and, not ice cream anymore, cotton candy. So definitely worth dropping by. And of course, you can join us on our Slack community as well. So thanks again for joining us today. Have a great rest of your afternoon.